the Prime Minister's call to the economist of a Viksit Bharat. Now, the Prime Minister made that clarion call at the Niti Aayog in May, and then when recently he met economists from across the country, Professor Goyal was part of the team at Niti Aayog. Prime Minister again spoke about the Viksit Bharat. Now, when the Prime Minister of the country is speaking about Viksit Bharat, the political power, I think economists also have a very important role to rise up to that call and deliver. Fortunately, we have the finance minister who's been there for many years. I also feel that she's the one who silently works and delivers. Look at various sectors of the economy, and you find that the economy is doing very well. So the credit does go to the finance minister of the country. Now, I myself have worked in the Reserve Bank of India's Fiscal Policy Department, where center and state budgets are analyzed together. Now, of course, they have become two separate departments, but earlier they were one when I was the director there of research. We all know that the country's progress, country's fiscal policy, though comes out annually in a budget, but has far-reaching implications. And though the union government only makes the central budget, it has very strong relationship with the state governments through of course the interrelation of resources that are flowing or the centrally sponsored schemes that happen. But even the messaging is very clear, and that goes very far in the state budgets, especially when in the states and the center there is common government. Obviously the union budget's message is louder and more clear. Given that we are, as a team of economists, we are together in this Viksit Bharat story. Also, given the fact that EGROW was very fortunate to have got this exercise to do right in the beginning in May 2021, when we prepared India Vision 2036, India Vision 2047, which later on through various iterations has now taken the shape of Viksit Bharat 2047. We at EGROW feel really honored, privileged, and sort of a sense of motherhood to this idea. Right from our beginning, Dr. Goyal, Professor Goyal has been our advisor. She has gone through all these iterations that I've just narrated to you. So we thought it would be best. She herself is a macroeconomist, and a macroeconomist with so much of experience of monetary too. She has been on the, she's been member of the MPC herself. And she's also been on the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council. So we requested her to please chair the session today. We have invited three brains, very seasoned economists. Professor Vaidyanathan, I have heard him speak while I was at IIM Bangalore. I have seen him since then, and he has been making solid contributions in macroeconomic policies. His books, his publications, and his regular discourses reveal his interest in the Indian economy and on issues of taxation, expenditure, debt, the unaccounted money. Professor Bijoy, again, very seasoned, from Northeast. And I think if we are going to be talking of Viksit Bharat, we mean the whole of Bharat. And I personally feel Northeast has very strong contributions to make in future. I also feel the potential of the Northeast is still untapped. Vast potential can be tapped in the next 22 years. Our third panelist for the day is Professor Bishnoi. He has just submitted successfully the roadmap for Viksit Haryana 2047. He had invited me to meet the CM when this was being discussed at length. Of course, I couldn't, but I had a chance to look at the document, and I was very thrilled because the document is a very rich document that they have prepared, keeping in mind the Viksit Haryana. With these and the chair, Professor Goyal. So I thought we can now, as a team of economists, contribute towards the goal of Viksit Bharat 2047. And as I see, of course, this is just, I'm sure you all have a different or a bigger or a better vision, but as I see, annual budgets are basically feeding into the Viksit Bharat 2047. So if that is it, we should have 22 budgets as we hit 2047. Of course, if you take the election years, then probably we'll have little more budget, some interim and some midterm. But broadly, we have that many budgets, and that's the direction, that's the target that we have in mind. So we at EGROW are going to have it as an annual feature. This is the first one, but every year we will have this, and we'll probably try to retain the same team looking at our target of Viksit Bharat. How is the fiscal policy dovetailing, converging, taking us into the Viksit Bharat? That is the objective of this special lecture that we have. With this background and context from EGROW, I hand over to Professor Goyal, who's our advisor and who's been a strong guiding light for us. She takes over and then takes the proceedings further. Professor, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you have set forth the vision and the objectives of this panel very, very clearly and very well. And let me say that I think the government also is really taking this as the vision going forward, that the budget should contribute towards a Viksit Bharat. It should be a guidepost on the path. And and I think that on a whole, for a developing economy, normally you face so many shocks, and each year there's a lot of volatility. But one of the really surprising features of the new features that struck us in the last 4 or 5 years is that these shocks have intensified, external shocks, not internal so much. And we have been able to smooth growth and continue growing. So in my view, India has reached a level of depth and diversity. It's like if you have a deep lake and you throw a stone, the ripples created are small, right? So we are able to absorb these shocks, but absolutely essential for that is the appropriate policy. And it is not only domestic, because if you look at the media, and currently this 500, whatever, this new tariff rate that Trump has, the US is talking about. Again, there's a lot of focus on the US. But one of our strengths over the last year has been that there has been diversity, even international diversity. For example, those shrimp farmers who were really worried about their exports to the US being affected have found new market in Australia. And this is the way to reach Viksit Bharat. Apart from domestic diversity, build on international diversity. And therefore, I think policies are on the way for that. So taking this as the theme for me, then fiscal policy is very, very important because it can affect it has multiple effects. There are multiple dimensions. And in the country, we see a large cacophony before every budget. Everybody wants the government to spend on their particular favorite, or there are people who would stand to benefit from the expenditures that are going to be made. So there is a long list of demands. And then there's also of reforms. And should the government does the government have to do everything? There are certain sort of like labor, land reforms that India has not progressed in this. So, off your mics, everyone. So, in my view, it is just looking at theory. The government's role is to increase the potential output. The highest level at which 8% and stability. And we are seeing that in the economy. There's macro financial stability. Inflation is very low. That means that we can grow at a higher than current 7% safely. So the policies demand. So here, what can fiscal policy do? There are multiple dimensions. One, of course, is affect the supply side, as we said, expand potential output. But then over the last year, we have seen tax reform, the income tax cuts, then the GST simplification, and now there is talk of customs reform. So a tax cut stimulates demand. But what was good about tax cuts? That was an objective, but it was in line with export, generally with reforms. The move towards simplification, towards once GST has stabilized, you can pass, reduce the number of rates, make it simpler, and tap India large base. We have very few taxpayers. So simplification and sort of reaching a larger base of taxpayers. So I think that these reforms are in line with that as there is revenue buoyancy, as there is the government's expenditure needs can be met by sharing some of that revenue with revenue buoyancy. Despite, and then of course, a lot of the analysts will say that India, in fact, they're talking about this. The next 6 months, public investment is going to slow because fiscal consolidation continues. We want to reach the deficit targets. And a lot of expenditure was taken up front over the previous 6 months. But they are missing a very important fact, which is that just the composition of expenditure helps sustain demand. We saw that with the GST cuts and its impact on consumption. So even if you have overall fiscal consolidation, and therefore that is the third aspect of fiscal policy. I think for us, it's very important to continue with fiscal consolidation. We are one of the very few countries that is actually bringing down deficits, and our debt is still sort of higher than our peers, although advanced economy debt has really increased, because about 25% of the center's revenue goes in interest payments. And we saw that with the macro financial improvements, our ratings improved, which brings down the cost of borrowing for everybody. So, and then of course, then there are other factors such as coordinating well with the states, even the third tier, reaching that in terms of giving them expenditure autonomy and better delivery of public services. And a final sort of theoretical or factor I will flag is the role of incentives. Just to illustrate this, we have seen that the corporate profits have increased a lot. Their savings have gone from about 3% to about 11%, while household savings have come down. But they are better, different kinds of portfolio of financial assets now. But corporates have got large tax cuts, but we're always waiting for corporate investment. It's not taking place. And innovation, R&D, which is very important for Viksit Bharat. India's expenditure on innovation is not enough. So I was thinking that you need a mixture of carrots and sticks. Like suppose earlier they used to give a large sort of tax deduction for R&D, but then that would lead to a lot of creative accounting. But now our measurement is better. So if we give corporates the alternative that either you invest physical investment, R&D, or you invest in funds, or the money goes to a government platform, which will make ready projects for different states as well. So that those who are already investing don't worry, but those who are lagging have to make that push and invest. Sort of have a mixture of carrots and sticks. So that is one example of the kind of incentives. And the other thing, very, very important, is the use of technology. People are worried that AI will lead to further job losses in India. But I think that if we focus on the use cases and increasing productivity, because when we compare ourselves with China, then we can't afford to have an export-led growth. In today's world, it's not possible. And compared to China, we have a better balance between consumption, our own consumption. Our savings are about 30% of GDP, which is respectable, but they're not China's 40 and 50%. And people tell us we have to save and invest at 40% in order to reach higher rates of growth. That's not possible. We need domestic demand also. So how do you so this better balance should work well for us. It's part of the diversity I flagged. So for non-inflationary growth, you need incomes and productivity to grow. You need inclusion. So AI can be used to increase skills and increase productivity, and that creates domestic demand. Yeah? So our own population should be a major source of demand. We saw that with these GST cuts and the stimulus given to domestic consumption, how that has, industry used to say that India, they had bought into this K-shaped recovery and inequality story. I think the experience of the last couple of years tells us that is not really true. I always spoke about second and third tier, the kind of expansion you are seeing there, the demand, and regional companies were coming up. While big corporates were saying they bought into this value strategy as compared to volumes, premiumization. So they were raising prices and focusing on a small set of consumers and then saying the demand is not there. But I think this GST cut has shown that the demand is there for the correct prices. And this should, induce them to increase capacity, that they need to focus on volumes. So I think a little bit of carrots and sticks in the budget will push them further in that direction. But we have a lot of regional small companies coming up. And, when we say that corporate investment is not there and it's a major kind of, something that's hindering our growth, we should remember that our investment rates are above 30%. They're the second highest in the world. And the way we measure household investment, it includes unorganized sector. So a lot of smaller firms and their investments are actually quite high. And as I said, so this is a diversity that can sustain our growth, and fiscal policy has to sort of stimulate this further. I think I'll stop there. And as I was saying, what's happening in different regions and smaller cities is very, very important. And what the budget can do to sustain that. That is where India's growth is taking place. So I think this panel has a wonderful mix of experts from different parts of the country. We look forward to hearing from them. I think, Professor, I'll go in the order which is there in the program. So, Professor Vaidyanathan, you can unmute yourself. Would you like to start your remarks?
So thank you, Professor Goyal. After that excellent exposition from your side, there is not much to add. Earlier, Charan Singh has also given a very good background of the whole thing, and you have provided, based upon your experience, you have been member of MPC, you have been member of the Prime Minister's Council, and so there is only couple of points I would like to add, nothing much to talk about. One is this, when you talk about fiscal policy, obviously, comes to mind in terms of the deficits. And I think it's not just the central government, it's also most important at the state level, also at the lower than state, municipal and other type of boards and other things. Because when we measure in terms of the central government's fiscal deficit or revenue deficit. We don't even take into account the comprehensive, PSU's problems and other things. We don't add it to that end. And a couple of that, more than that is the issue of this, elderly people are telling only 3% Indians are paying taxes. And I don't know where from this 3% came. Anyhow, that has got settled down, I think. Somebody might have divided the number of assessees by 140 crores and then including children and to be born people, and then computed and then told. Actually, if you look at it, we have 140 crore, 35 crore families are there as per the estimate. And half of them are not eligible to pay income tax, agriculture income. That's, I think, is the very critical. If you want to have a Viksit Bharat, we must encourage state governments to levy taxes on agriculture. We have huge number of islands of millionaires in this country. I have traveled across, and then, in the area of poultry, in the area of cash crops, in the area of spices, really billionaires actually. With, if you look at the car sales, for instance, the so-called super luxury cars, good number of them are brought by the so-called quote unquote farmers. It's not just so there is a huge amount of potential there. I think we should tap that. Otherwise, the 17 crore families which are excluded, only 17 crores are in the tax bracket. And of that 10 crore, if you take with a population of 15 crore, we have 9.5, nearly 10 crore filed last year actually for the income tax. So that means roughly 50% are tax covered in some way or other. That is, they may not be exactly paying any taxes, but they are covered in terms of forms and other things. So 50% is reasonable number, and the time has come for us to seriously think of agriculture income tax. And it's shift. The burden is shifted on the state government. If I remember, Ashok Mitra, when he was finance minister at West Bengal, he introduced it. There was so much, hue and cry that he was my teacher actually. That's a different, but he introduced it. It was told, no, you cannot, and then it was dropped. And then in some policy matter, somebody introduced one sentence, agriculture income tax should be considered. Immediately everybody pounced on it, and so we have created a very messy situation in which huge number of millionaires in this country are not looked at all. And that is one thing I would. Second is, we went and did that remarkable thing called GST. Roughly 21 type of regulatory frameworks, state government, state level, and various central level have been merged into one single GST. And actually, one of the French professor who is a colleague of mine, he told me very interesting. EU has been trying to do it for the last 25 years. They have not succeeded. He said, your country is similar to you, but you have succeeded. I think there is some amount of political will is required in the area of agriculture income tax and the simplification of tax structure. This is another. We should aim to create a situation where without a chartered accountant intermediary, a person can file his return and be peaceful and happy. This is very important. And I think above 70 years, I have a vested interest in this, taxes should be abolished, except for those who are earning up after 50 lakhs. This I have been suggesting for the last 10 years. Of course, advice, as somebody told me very interestingly in Delhi, advice is supposed to be given, that's all. It doesn't mean it should be taken. So this is that's why they always call it advisory committee. In all it's never in terms of taking any. So above 70, 50 lakh. And then the slabs are too many, and all this deduction and this and that, all should be. We should have a very simple structure in terms of 10 lakh, no taxes, 10 to 30, 30 to 50. That's all. And above 50, even people who are aged above 70 should be taxed. And we should have a simple thing in terms of 10%, 20%, and 30%. That's all. And nothing else. No other, deduction and this and that and other thing. So one page, one sheet, I have always appreciated one angle, the German as well as the Singapore tax forms, just one sheet. You fill it up, sign below, and then give it. That's all. There is no other complications. So this is something I think we should really think of. Agriculture income tax, simplifying the tax structure. Transmission, of course, that's a huge problem in India. Whether it is monetary policy or fiscal. So many years in the last couple of budgets, taxes have been reduced. Corporate taxes have been rationalized, reduced, but that has not been transmitted to the ultimate consumer. That is very important. RBI, so much I should not criticize, but so much amount of time and effort is spent on this 0.25% or 0.5% reduction, but that is passed to the banks and banks absorb it. That's all. How many of them have really passed on to the ultimate consumer? And this credit thing, my estimate suggests 30 to 35% is only served by the commercial banks and MBFCs. The remaining comes from family, extended family, money lenders, caste associations, and other things. 60%. And there the interest rate is 2 to 3 times more than that what is charged by the commercial banks. So on that score, nobody seems to worry about or anything. Everybody is focusing only on the 30% of the banks. Same way, we need to look at even the public enterprises. Some of you may be knowing it. There are 1,100 state enterprises in this country. Even that number is contested between the Planning Commission or now currently Niti Aayog and various other government thing. Various numbers are given. What is the total number of public enterprises under state government? That number, I'm not talking about anything more than that, is not clear. Anyhow, out of that, nearly 800 have not finalized their account after 2015-16. More than 3/4 have not finalized. Forget about they are making profit, they are making losses and other things. They have not even finalized accounts. If it is a private sector, action can be initiated. In the case of pay, they come and give some excuses or something, and then time is given more. All these are huge drain on the state resources. They don't, they are called enterprises. That itself, I am not very comfortable. That name, they should be called something else. Every chairman is getting one car, one flag, one red light, and these are just extra type of freebies given to their own chamchas. In all the state government, I'm not talking about this or that state government. I think time has come to look at it very seriously, this 1,100, because whenever we talk about PSU, immediately we talk about BHEL, ISRO, and BEL. And nobody seems to worry about this state enterprises. So that is a huge drain, and that should be. More important is these freebies have to be looked at very seriously. We have been very casual about it, and we have not approached that issue seriously at all. For instance, just now, yesterday, Tamil Nadu government has announced 3,000 rupees to every cardholder for Pongal. And 3,000 rupee multiplied by the number of cardholders, you can imagine. As well as they have also provided in Karnataka as well as in Tamil Nadu free bus service for women. All women, even Ashima Goyal can go free. There is no question of any. Of course, she is not a citizen of Karnataka. You have to have an Aadhaar card and other thing. Otherwise, there is no distinction. All rich women, poor women. This freebies are nothing but bribing the people before poll using the state resources. And that has created a huge chaos, according to me, in the fiscal system of these state government. And below that, if you go, you will not be able to even smell. It's such a rotten situation. All these municipalities, and most of them are not self-sustaining or anything. They don't raise any resources. They depend only on the state government gratis. And they left, and corruption, unbelievable, actually, if you can talk about it at all. So that is something which the last point is it's always told that household saving has come down as percentage of GDP from 12% to 6%, and everybody is waxing eloquent about how can household saving come down. Something they don't understand, or rather it is forgotten, that this is purely what I call terminological terrorism. Somewhere 6-7 years before, large number of these partnership proprietorship firms have been reclassified as quasi-corporate. I can never understand this. I asked Aravind Subramaniam, what is this quasi-corporate? Either you can be pregnant or you don't have to be pregnant. You can't be, partly pregnant. So this is some type of a peculiar, and this is to satisfy, I do not know, whatever is the reason. And so you have clubbed many of them outside, and suddenly you say that the remaining portion is only. See, the crucial problem is separating the pure consuming household and producing household, which we have not succeeded. And currently some revision is going to take place. Hopefully they tackle this problem. This problem has been there with us for the last 15, 16 years. I have written a book on India unincorporated partnership proprietorship firms. So this is the fundamental issue. So the reduction in the household saving is only optics, is only sort of, it makes us feel uncomfortable, but it is due to change in terminology. So I don't think we should lose our sleep on that. So the savings of household is significant, and that has contributed more than the FDI and FII which is coming into India. The domestic saving only has sustained our growth. So the Viksit Bharat has come out of domestic saving, and the growth has been due to the housewives of this country. And it is in spite of, sorry to say, it's in spite of the government, not due to government. The saving of the households have been very prudently done, and of course substantial amount has gone into land and gold. Nothing wrong about it according to me. So we should look at the state enterprise level, and we should look at the lower level corruption. It's one thing to sit at Delhi and say ease of doing business. My corner hotel fellow, he says ease of doing business means my drawer is full of cash. That's the only thing. That's the way in which I think. So we should introduce, like Germans and French had after the Second World War, that having more than 5 lakh cash in hand itself is a crime. No need for anyone to prove that it is disproportionate to the income and other thing. So the judges who hold a huge amount of cash in their annex room can be straight away caught. So I think 5 lakh cash will be, because all bribe is in cash. So far, at least, nobody has given bribe in checks. So this, I think, we should, and this is really eating the vials of the economy at the lowest possible level. According to me, start from below. Any changes, any reforms, we should start from below, not start from above. That's what is my input for Viksit Bharat. Thank you for providing me this grand opportunity by Charan Singh and Ashima ji. Thank you.
Thank you. Charan, should we take questions for Dr. Vaidyanathan first?
Totally, you are in the chair, whatever you decide.
Yeah, it's better to have discussion now than otherwise, but some limit, maybe 5, 10 minutes or so. So let me just, and you made some excellent points, Professor. And I just want to sort of organize them as Charan was guiding us in terms of principles. That we want to go to Viksit Bharat. So the changes, the budget, the fiscal policy generally should follow some principles that will take us there. So I think some of the principles that come out of your discussion, this simplify taxes, remove loopholes. That is an excellent principle to keep in mind. And this whole agriculture tax exemption is a big loophole which is used by the rich to escape taxes. But this is a real political hot potato. I remember I suggested this once innocently in some question some journalist had put to me.
Yes.
And normally people just ignore what you say. And this went all over the regional papers. And I would get mails from people saying, Madam, don't talk about taxes. So there is this huge sort of political backlash. So how do you do this? What are ways to implement? And then it's absolutely, a friend of mine in Singapore was saying how just one day that pre-filled form comes, one form, and their tax returns are done. So that simplification, we can really, we have gone some way, but there's much more to go. It really saves transactions and
Yeah, you have to catch the bull
then
by the horn sometime or other. It used to be told. Sorry.
But this issue, it's a kind of, they play, what is it, that hot potato between states and the center.
This
Like,
whole thing is the concept of
state
poor farmers,
subjects
or not all farmers are poor, Even Charan Singh can claim
Yes, now
he is
you
a
have
poor
much
farmer.
better data. Right.
No,
So
it can be
we have
tackled.
much better data. So this idea of 5 sort of consumption goods, holidays abroad, luxury cars, and so on, those sort of people must pay taxes, whether the income is from agriculture or so you can use better data to find a technical solution to this, I think. And then the other, I think, excellent principle out of your talk is this decentralization of third tier. So better accounts. I was suggesting in the PM meeting, that ease of doing business won't work until it goes to the bottom, to the third tier, to that village and panchayat. And we have multiple agencies with arbitrary powers, and people run from pillar to post, and this corruption. So that I was, some sort of unused technology. We have this platform approach in the smart cities, but there's sort of proprietary interest in data, and people will not, there's duplication, waste of resources, all sorts of things. So some tech-enabled champion to increase coordination and transparency, some kind of reform that works. And then I think those are the main principles that I've taken out of your talk. If you agree or there's something else, we want to sort of put down some principles that should guide fiscal policy and help the economy reach Viksit Bharat. Now, if you turn to the questions in the chat bot, there's someone, this women free bus rides for women. There's a set of freebies, if you regard it as anything, this is the 4th principle, I think we should highlight that spending, the composition of spending really matters. So you say that there's high growth, revenue buoyancy, you can cater to every interest group, there's some deserving people and so on. But you need your income, you want a bang for every buck, as they say. So it must go in the directions which are most productive, which build capacities. So just giving women free, you improve the education and the pollution, the gas, the kind of cooking, the fuels, which affects their health. So you do things like that. And this idea of free prices, what happens to that state railroad corporation? As you were saying, public sector enterprises, like the power sector, the kind of absolute freebies without proper pricing so that electricity is wasted, power, water runs and water tables are shrinking in Punjab. That's an absolute tragedy. So you look at the focus on productive expenditure, and again, another issue with the states. Once I heard one state minister saying that every government comes in and starts a new scheme, and there are some vested interests in older. No scheme is ever shut. So you have hundreds, thousands of schemes in every state, overlapping, wasting resources. So all this kind of improvement in expenditure, and how do you get over the political resistance? So for you, there are some questions in the chat board. Someone is asking specifically about this scheme. These schemes for women empower women and increase their mobility. Further, they're provided to the poor, improving the consumer demand too. And then the question to both of us saying, how do we deal as a society deal with deep mafia business, political, administrative nexus that is eating up the potential of Indian economy, especially in the heartland states? So if you would like to take these two questions or respond to any of the points I made. You have to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself. You're mute. We can't hear you. So I think we'll come back to Professor Vaidyanathan. There seems to be some issue. Maybe we can ask Professor Bishnoi if you would like to start.
You have to unmute yourself, Professor.
Okay. Now Professor Vaidyanathan is unmuted. Do you want to respond quickly?
No, let the other two experts also give their views.
Okay, fine. Professor Bishnoi, please go ahead.
So thank you, Chair, for allowing me the opportunity to share my views on this. And before I start, I'm really thankful to Professor Charansi for giving me an opportunity to be on this very prestigious platform. And it's an honor to have my views in the presence of Professor Ashima, Goyal, Professor Vaidyanathan, and all others. So I really feel privileged. I have a small presentation, and I request Vanshika, please, allow please Vanshika to share the PPTs. So I would like to have so that key. Next. So, well, as we all know, and Professor Ashima Goyal and Professor Vaidyanathan has also, mentioned something on this. We are expecting to be a developed economy. Presently, we are moving very fast, and fourth economy. Times of India claims in its 31st December news that India is now the officially fourth largest economy in the world, with and India is expected to grow about 7%. The chair, Professor Ashima Goyal, has also mentioned this thing, that this more than 7% growth in real terms is possible only when other things are constant, ceteris paribus. But I think the way things are moving around at global stage, we cannot say that things are same, and so things are highly volatile. So let us see how things, how India negotiates its way forward in this global arena, because President Trump of USA had almost demolished the old world order. New global engagement norms are rewritten, and when we read the history, we see that in mercantile era, the raiders were there on the sea trying to capture others. Something similar had been seen over here. So we don't know that we can discuss all these things in such a simple way that economy would continue smoothly moving forward when such a powerful China is also. So next slide, please. So now ascendant India navigating the new world disorder rather. So why is India targeted somehow? I feel so. I have a very strong view on this, and I hope others would also agree that China is always been a geopolitical rival to us, and I have a proposition that in 62 it wanted to teach us a lesson when we wanted to be on the, amongst the most respected nations in the world, and again it is trying to do something similar. So this is a giant breathing down our neck. Similarly, USA looks for client states, and India is too big to be tamed. So USA is also not very happy with us, and then Indian talent threatening domestic jobs all around the world. And presently, one more thing has happened about India is that long ago, most of the bright students and high net worth individuals were going out of the country to be in developed economies. But presently, this donkey route, or even not in donkey route, officially also, B grade or C grade universities or very ordinary institutions. So, lot of persons from Gujarat, from Haryana, from Punjab, even UP, they have been going there for study, in the name of study, and then they go and just disappear or start doing some menial job or like this. So these things have created a backlash against Indians. So that has also been there. So the point is, next please. My take on all this is that when a country is fourth largest economy, obviously we are going to face these challenges. Because when we were a relatively small player, nobody noticed us, but now India is going to be noticed. So we'll have to be careful. We cannot, have any grudge or any complaint against any country. So whenever a country, aspire to be a bigger power, so they will have to take these challenges and they will have to negotiate or, take on these things. Now, second issue is, and it is very close to my heart being working at the state level economies, that India as a country would be becoming a upper middle income economy by 30-31 or something like that. Next 7-8 years. But that is not the important point. The important point is that states like Haryana, Telangana, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and to some extent Kerala, Maharashtra also, these states are already around $5,000 per capita income in nominal terms. So they are technically into this upper middle income category. So they are. On the other hand, we have Bihar, UP, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Assam, and so many other states. Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh have slightly done better. So these states are still in the low income category as per World Bank classifications. So now we have not a homogeneous India. Geographically, we have a very heterogeneous one where poor countries are there, poor economies are there, and relatively better ones are also there. So regional disparity has been widening. This is a very important, issue. And Bihar's per capita income over the last 15 years has come down from 34% of national average to below 30%. So that means that despite all the big talk of Bihar doing something miraculous, its growth has not been able to keep pace with the Indian national average growth rate. Now, we all know that this economic divide is coinciding with the political divide, because when we see that all the time we listen that southern states and western states have been doing exceptionally well, and northern states, the Hindi belt, that had been lagging behind. So it has political overtones, and we have heard about this in our, whether it's census or our seat allocation, Lok Sabha, and all these things. So these things have some bearing on the overall political economy of the country. Next, please. Now, fiscal policy obviously is a tool to address these challenges. So one thing that fiscal policy no longer about is spending more. It is about spending better, targeted one. One thing over here I can say is that this centrally sponsored CSS, centrally sponsored schemes, they have been, a lot has been written on this, and very eminent persons are there on this panel, so I need not go into detail. But the point is that these centrally sponsored schemes invariably create a distortion in the expenditure priorities at the state level, because states feel politically or otherwise opportunistically also constrained to go for these schemes in the, expecting government of India money for that, a large part of it. So what, in fact, recently I was on a panel of Rural Development Ministry of Government of India. So we have proposed over there, I don't know whether it will be accepted or not, that rather than a single scheme, if government of India insists on having a scheme, it should have a bouquet of schemes, 3, 4, 5 schemes. Out of these 5 schemes, a state can select one scheme rather than being compelled to either say yes or no to each scheme. So that is one part. Then spending smarter, then governing better, then financing growth sustainably. We'll come to this in next slides. Next, please. So these are the challenges: managing geopolitical situations in strategic terms, negotiating global economic headwinds. Economically, things are highly uncertain these days, so we'll have to negotiate these things. Then India will have, with these global challenges and internal challenges, will have to sustain a growth of 7-8% for next 2 decades. Now, one more thing is there, that it is employment intensive growth. What do we need is rather than simple growth. So how can we ensure this thing? Because one thing on the technology front, we'll have to catch up with the best in the world, but we also need to create employment. So that is a big challenge. So then human capital deepening is also required. So now focus has been on infrastructure. So my proposition is that infrastructure should create more productivity rather than infrastructure as such, because how can infrastructure lead to higher productivity, more productive economy? We should focus more on that. Then we have climate compatible things, and so these are the basically challenges we'll have to keep in mind when we are thinking to make India a developed economy next 20 or 25 years. Next, please. Next. Now, this is something very interesting. I found this from Ernst & Young. Professor D.K. Srivastav has done all this, so I'm not going to use much, but still. So one thing over here is that in 1986-87, total government's tax to GDP ratio was 16%. And in 1920-21, again, this ratio still remains at 16%. Now it is 18%. So on few occasions, 3-4 occasions, it has touched 18%. But interestingly, it has been hovering around for last 20 years between 16% to 20%, 18%. 16 to 18% of GDP. This is the combined government. So now the big challenge, I think, is before the government is, or not only government, but all that one who can think about this issue. How come tax to GDP ratio in the country? I have seen many papers claiming that given the economic level of the country, this tax to GDP ratio is sufficient or something. I don't argue on that. My only simple question is, when we could achieve 16% of the tax to GDP ratio 40 years ago, how come we have not been able to improve this ratio despite all the economic growth, structural changes, and technology, taxation reforms? Everything has been done, but it has not been improving. So that is one thing we need to be very, careful. What can be the reason? I think only 2 possible reasons, in my opinion. Number one, that still tax evasion is there, as Professor Vaidyanathan is saying, that agriculture tax, we should have agriculture tax, or better tax compliance or things like that. But I also think that in India, lot of persons, high net worth individuals have been, I don't know, I have not done it, it's a simple thought, but still I feel that lot of high net worth individuals have been leaving the country. So, and similarly, the most talented persons are going abroad for education. 13 lakh persons are still, in other countries, spending billions and billions of dollars for education. And then 75%, government of India says that 75% of those students never come back to the country. So we are losing our talent. And we say that USA is on the top because it is attracting the talent. But somehow we, for India, we say that India will gain because we are, exporting the talent. I never understand this contradictory things, that America will gain and India will also gain by exporting. It's the same, talent. So this is a point, that we are losing high net worth individuals who can create jobs, pay taxes, and that can be one of the reasons. Next, please. Similarly, non-tax revenue, that is also again almost stagnant over the 74-75 to last 50 years. It has been stagnant at around 2.5% of the GDP. This again combined, given by Professor T.K. Srivastava. So next, please. Revenue expenditure. So over the last 20 years, it has been around 25%, something like this. So next. So revenue 20%, revenue expenditure 25%, 5% deficit we can see immediately over here. This is total expenditure including capital expenditure. So that is also more or less stagnant. Next, please. Next. So obviously, when fiscal deficit of the central government is more, total budget, total public debt of the central government is also going to be slightly much higher than that. My take from all this over here is that because the governments in India have not been able to mobilize sufficient resources to meet their revenue expenditures, we have been incurring revenue deficit. And to meet that revenue deficit, the government is forced to take a loan. And to service those loans, now we are in that vicious circle that interest payment has become the highest expenditure item in our budgets, whether it's the state governments or government of India. So, because in my opinion, now we should come back again from fiscal deficit to focus should be more on revenue deficit, because this is the, in my opinion, real culprit. And we are trying to save the government by not focusing on revenue deficit. That is my take on this. And when revenue deficit is there, government is taking loan and to meet its current expenditure. So saving also comes down of the country as a whole. Investment also comes down. Investment also being pushed upwards. So capital cost becomes slightly higher. So this is the point where government should be more mindful when it's, whether it is freebies or essential expenditures, or even, in my opinion, defense expenditure need a lot of money. So to meet all those expenses, revenue need to be increased. Next. Now, Professor Vaidyanathan has said this thing, and Professor Ashima Goyal was also mentioning. I also fully agree with that. That in fact, when it comes to ULBs or urban local bodies, what I call is the Maruti car syndrome. In fact, when we say that we are losing high net worth individuals and regional disparities are increasing, it is just because of not giving sufficient focus on ULBs. Most of the things like drinking water, cleanliness, sanitation, street light, parks, and all those things, it is the responsibility of the municipalities. Unfortunately, municipalities in India are not sufficiently empowered in terms of function. We call it function funds, some functionaries. So they are not able to, do the justice with the citizens. So when we say that we are reducing the taxes for the rich, it is like we have a Maruti car. We are trying to sell a Maruti car to a millionaire by giving a discount to that person. What that person need now is a better car. So rather than a Maruti car, Maruti 800, we should try to sell some better car to, those persons who have become fairly rich. And so they are, in my opinion, they are ready to pay more provided government services, quality of government services improves. That is what I wish to say in this regard. Next, please. Strategic options. What strategic options do we have? Now, in my opinion, the most critical thing is for developed economy, R&D, because in the beginning I said when India is the fourth largest economy, nobody is going to be happy with us. Nobody is going to give us critical technologies, on whether it is defense or it is our industry, economy, anything like this. So for defense, self-defense, for strategic autonomy, and also economic sustainability, competitive and inclusive developments, everywhere we need R&D, and it means how can we do that? And I'll come to this next slide. But in addition to R&D, we need to have decentralized governance. I have discussed that thing in my previous slide. Then decentralized development basically has got more connotations, and that is that a number of researchers I have seen that if regional development, regional more balanced growth development is there, that is more inclusive in terms of social and economic terms. In fact, one thing which we have missed in our country, in my opinion, is that when jobs are created in metro towns, a number of persons who are at the lower end of the economic system, who can get salary up to say 15, 20, 25,000 rupees, they find it extremely difficult to shift from hinterland to metropolitan cities. So ultimately they land up in slums. So if those jobs are available in the relatively smaller cities, they can continue to work from their home places and have a decent surplus even at this 15, 20,000 rupees of earnings. So main problem is not low paying jobs. Main problem in my opinion is low paying jobs are created in metro towns in a very limited geographical areas, and that is causing a lot of displacements. So in India, what we call is in geography, urban primacy is there. Few cities are growing disproportionately. Hinterland is totally disconnected with the main economy of the metro town, and this is creating lot of complications. And the reason for this primacy is two reasons were called by experts. One is roads have been widened. Still, the issue is not as addressed. So, second one is political concentration of power. So, when power is concentrated in the capitals, then persons who are economically active would like to be shifting to capital towns to be in close touch with the powers that be. Next, please. So now, why I say that R&D? I remember I have written a paper I have shared with Professor Charan Singh also, that in USA during Second World War, lot of money was given by the government defense ministry of the US to MIT, to Harvard, and then they also because they were in a great hurry, so they also funded it for commercialization purposes. Route 128 was developed in this way in Boston. So then Stanford imitated that experiment, and the Silicon Valley thing came up in 1951, and this Route 128 developed in 1940s. So in 1940s, the research done by the universities for the government defense ministry of USA was translated into commercial ventures, high-tech commercial ventures. Country defense benefited, economy benefited, university benefited, and this was a symbiotic relationship between universities and defense expenditure. So US has throughout been benefiting. Before that, this was the case with England. So US has been the pioneer in this case, where universities are leveraged to take the country to lead the country in terms of technology and knowledge creations. So now in India, what can we do is that we can also think of something of the similar model, that universities can be funded. And what I propose is that CSIR labs and DRDO, some of the DRDO labs can also be converted into research universities. Universities can be given funding. Those fundings, government has been doing a lot of things. Only thing needed is that we appreciate, recognize that this is the disconnect, and then Kerala, in particularly Trivandrum Park in Kerala, I have done a case study on that. So it has been done successfully very well over there. How to harness this whole develop whole ecosystem to leverage the research into businesses. So that can be done by giving venture capital, being connected to venture capital, then advisory services, and so many other things that can always be done. Similarly, Government of India has been having a lot of missions like AI mission, quantum computing, then 6G development, and all these things. So all these are independent of universities. So now what I propose is that all these things can be also routed through within the domain of the universities, and we need to have some universities at least. A few years ago, I heard a lot about global level universities, private parties are also there, but we do not hear about all that now. I don't know what has happened to that, but we need to push that hard. Next, please. So these are the routine things that rather than narrow tax, we need to expand our tax base. Then one thing I think positive going to happen for the country is in informal sector, as Professor Vaidyanathan has said, that partnership firms were taken into corporate. Similarly, now the average size of the informal firm has been increasing. The number is decreasing. Ultimately, we hope that this informality issue will be taken care of in time to come. So we hope that tax base would improve. Next, please. So fiscal federalism, we have talked. In fact, in this fiscal federalism, what I think is that government of India should not have fit for all, one size fit all approach, and state government should delegate much more power and money to the urban local bodies. These two things need to be done simultaneously if we wish to make India truly a great country. Next. Now, this is something very close to my heart, and only one thing I can discuss over here, not discuss, but mention over here is need for evidence-based policy formulation. In fact, I don't know much about other states, but interestingly, what I have felt is that things, policies are made without having hard evidences before us, and when economy is doing, for example, I can say that Haryana is no more an agriculture economy. Haryana IT hub is there, health, he's doing wonderful over here in terms of health infrastructure, not in terms of health outcomes, but health infrastructure in Haryana is extremely wonderful. In agriculture, our main crops are stagnating, but livestock is doing exceptionally well. On industrial front, Haryana has been doing reasonably well. Education, almost all the districts are having universities. Many districts have been medical colleges have been established. So a lot of things are happening. But if you talk to a policymaker, invariably they will end up saying that Haryana is an agriculture-dominated economy, so we should have this or that thing in my mind. So hardcore evidences, then policy making, and keeping ahead of the curve in terms of policy making, anticipating and taking corrective steps, and so something similar is something that type of required. Similarly, citizen-centric governance. That this is something I don't know how can that be done, but if citizens can be empowered in our governance, and I think if local government is given some authority, it can be done easily. But at the state level or central level, citizens do not have much role to play over there. So next, please.
Yeah, I think we need to, as well, short time, so
just in a, so I can, just you can have a look at it. Next. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, a very excellent presentation. And I think the same sort of principles we are trying to extract. So for example, you started by saying uncertain global environment, how can we continue to grow? But I think the post-pandemic period has shown us that we have the depth of policy. Even last year against the US trade, etc., we were able to use the GST cut, or counter-cyclical liquidity infusion after the pandemic, etc. So we have the policy tools, but we need to use counter-cyclical policy. Normally, emerging markets tend to tighten everything when things are bad, that what will happen, you increase buffers, but you need to stimulate the economy and smooth growth. Because a sign of maturity is smooth growth, that increases ratings and so on. So I think that is one important principle that we should underline. And of course, the most important is this whole issue of center-state relations and decentralization. You put it very, very well, that the state needs to empower the ULBs. That is where real activity and growth will take place and migration will occur. And that requires a change in governance. And these centrally sponsored schemes, they substitute for a lack of delivery to the individual, lack of delivery of public services, health, environment, so on, So if the state decentralized, there are many state finance commissions are not, there's no property tax, for example, could raise a lot of money in municipalities. It's not empowered at all. So I think states that actually do active decentralizing, you need better accounts. Professor Vaidyanathan's problem of corruption, state government will say there's too much corruption to devolve, but then you need better systems, accounting, governance, etc., use of data. So for example, a lot of these centrally sponsored schemes, all the money, that 95% of the funds that go to panchayats are used to provide water, which state governments have not achieved, and institute e-accounts, e-gram, Swaraj, whatever. So that improves systems in panchayats. Now, if states should be doing this, but you hit the nail on the head when you said it's because politicians think that it's a rural economy, the rural vote bank is larger. They don't see the migration and the changes taking place. So they need to, be better informed on this. And maybe this CSS, as you're saying, a bouquet of schemes, but states should also amalgamate, increase the coherence of their schemes and cut duplication and waste and so on. So improvements, and it can be conditional. States that are delivering, that have decentralized, can be given untied, because a lot of the money, you're saying the center has, but I looked at some data that about the cesses and so on, that it all goes to the states. It goes in the centrally sponsored schemes. So actually they are giving the money to this interest-free 50-year loan. That amounts to 4.5 trillion since 21, and that has led to a lot of rise in investment in infrastructure in states. So anyway, so I think the one question I would like you to sort of take up is incentives. How do you actually operationalize all this? Like you said, education, so, and technology, in the US, the link between research, government research grants and university. But I was reading somewhere that the key issue of the US structure was universities had to compete for research grants.
Right.
So the quality of universities, not that you just get money, you have to demonstrate capability, all those, research rankings, etc. And so improve compete, and then the best get it, and then that leads to better outcomes. So how to improve incentives in the system and actually implementation.
In fact, you have answered the question. In fact, you have answered it in the sense that if we take the university as capability centers rather than ranking and this benchmarking and things like this. So unfortunately, particularly at state level and also to some extent at central level, universities are regarded as something teaching shops. They would teach and do some research for publications. So until this thinking goes from the policymakers, so once they realize that, because you see, today I was talking to a vice chancellor, that they said we never know what the government expects from us, and it's an interesting thing. So vice chancellor, obviously, it's a political appointment, so they will think that we'll do something which government will appreciate. In a very sense, I can say. So when government declare that we expect a university to do these things, to excel in these fields, in these domains, then university will start taking efforts in that direction. So I never feel that universities are not having talent or efforts are not there. Only thing is, it is all misdirected. So
you need to improve incentives through the system. Better
direction. We need to do the direction.
Yes.
And direction for the first for the makers, and then it would come to universities.
Good. So now I think we go to Professor Bijoykumar Singh. We're waiting to hear what the Northeast, what's the view from the Northeast. Are you there, Professor?
Yeah. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to thank first Professor Charan Singh for giving me this opportunity of sharing some of my thoughts on this particular topic, which is a very, very hot topic. I would like to cover basically 3 points. The first point is about our understanding of the concept of this idea the idea of Viksit Bharat. The second point that I would like to just give a very, broad view about how to do it, and then the feasibility of the policies. Now, first of all, I have a feeling that the very concept of Viksit Bharat is an evolving concept. Even though it is claimed that Viksit Bharat is part of the philosophy of the ruling party since 2014, we really don't have a very clear picture of that until 2023. And after that also, there is actually an open invitation from our Prime Minister that the roadmap will be started not by the government but by the nation, and there is an open invitation to all institutions that they should contribute, and they should try to enlighten on what they would like to have India in this 2047. So what I feel is that this is an evolving idea, evolving concept. So making policies, whether it is fiscal or monetary, for something which is very, very actually, which is dynamic actually, moving, it will be very, very difficult. And it was only in the last budget that we got some idea, clear picture of the parameters like zero poverty, and then access to quality and affordable and comprehensive healthcare, and so on. About five, six parameters were given. That was only thing that we have, And so when we are actually making some plans for such a long time, almost over 25 years, when so many things can change, even the very understanding of our indicators also might change, So, for example, when we talk about this, that India should become a developed nation, now what does actually development really mean? And our understanding of development also has been undergoing lots of changes, and also is going to undergo lots of changes, particularly with the advent of artificial intelligence, and also there are so many things are happening around the world, and so that is actually makes and of course with this artificial intelligence and then big data based studies, we are actually even thinking of revising the very measures of development, not only GDP. So my point is that Viksit Bharat, even though it looks very attractive right now, is going to be a very, very ambiguous type of thing, because many of the indicators, many of the targets are still moving, not yet properly identified, and I have a feeling that more targets will be will be coming up in the next few years. So this is one thing that I actually feel. Then the second point is whether we can hope to achieve the Viksit Bharat status. Of course, India has actually gone through lots of changes, and now we have demonstrated our capabilities, and actually in many ways we graduated from the humble growth economy to an economic powerhouse, achieving the food security, then implementing rounds of economic reforms, attaining nuclear capability and satellite technology, and emerging as a global manufacturing hub, and also eradicating poverty to a large extent, even before the target of 2030 is the targets. So India actually, has shown its capability in many ways. So therefore, but of course now challenges are huge. In other words, we have to raise the growth rates of the GDP from the 6 to 7% to about 9% on the average on a sustainable basis for the next 25 years. That is, if we want to avoid the middle income trap, and we will need significant increase in savings and investments that we have been already mentioned by my previous panelists. And we have to increase savings, investment, and also the productivity. Now, this will need keeping the cost of borrowing at a reasonable level, import flexibility to factor markets, create more open economic environment for trade and investment, and improve the ease of doing business. Now, both monetary and fiscal policies will play a very, very significant roles to achieve these targets, to achieve these parameters. Of course, fiscal policy has always been a very important determinant of growth. Now, taxation, public investment, and other aspects of fiscal policy can explain. It has explained both miracles and stagnations, of growth. Now, if you look at the endogenous growth models, they don't tend to transform the temporary growth effects of fiscal policies implied by the neoclassical models into permanent growth effects. The strength of these effects depend on the elasticity of labor supply and on aspects of the technology to accumulate human capital. Of course, human capital is going to be a very, very important, part of the Viksit Bharat movement. And if we on the fiscal policy side, if we try to make some comments on that, on the fiscal policy side, we should make a very, very aggressive attempt at fiscal consolidation towards sustainable levels of deficit and debt, while continuing to spend more on productive physical infrastructure. And because infrastructure, as we know, has always played a very, very important role in growth. Wherever we have physical infrastructure as such, we have been having economic growth. Of course, there are some aberrations also, but most of the time we have been finding that. And this higher public investment in infrastructure will lead to crowding in effect by the private investment. Now, I will not go into the micro side of these policy measures, but on the broad side, what I would like to suggest for the fiscal policy is that the fiscal rules should be there across all levels of government towards achieving sustainability. Sustainability should be maintained at every level. Then, a scientific public finance management system to provide comprehensive, reliable, and timely reporting of the fiscal indicators. And then, an independent fiscal institution to assess and advise the working of the system. Now, as we have seen, many of the very, very promising fiscal policy measures have failed to deliver. And for this, we have to actually have a very, very careful look into the dynamics of those failures. We can learn both from failures as well as success. So, but that will happen only when we have a very, very sort of independent fiscal council to look into those issues, not only at the central level, but also at the sub-national level, state levels. Then there should be a renewed thrust on export and the growing trend in protectionism should be reversed. Now we are talking about Atmanirbhar and many other policy measures which may actually degenerate into that import substitution phase of our trade policies. Now, opening up the economy for trade and investment, this is very important to accelerate growth. Now, foreign direct investment also will come in if we open up the economy, and with foreign direct investment, you will have not only the finance but also technology, and also the local firms, local companies, they will become competitive with those things, with those firms. Then we have our we talk about our demographic dividend, but as we see it, the demographic dividend will be of little use if our youth they don't have the appropriate skills. We cannot expect them to be absorbed all in the service sector because of their lack of skills. So the government actually, of course, this should be an integral part of the fiscal policy to actually sustain and increase the expenditure on education, not only education but also on health. So basically, the human capital should be actually patronized, should be developed at any cost. If we want to attain this the status of Viksit Bharat. Now, the third point that I would like to make is whether we can do it. Can we do it? Of course, if we look at economic history, we have ample examples of Japan, example of Germany, then Singapore and South Korea, who actually availed of such rare opportunities in their growth episodes. From very, very low levels of GDP, they simply actually jump, literally jump on the development part, and they have done very well. So that actually India also, if we have strong faith in our destiny, and if we have, as we have, actually of course we have it, a strong political commitment and leadership, then India also can definitely do it. Now, as I said, I didn't mention the other policies. I was just trying to highlight some of the main contours of the fiscal policy that would be appropriate for this jump. Then, as part of this final point, I actually again this has been repeated by Professor Bishnoi also, is about the regional inequalities. Now, India as of now consists of a number of states with different capabilities. Some states have very high growth rates, and some states are basically stagnating. Now, when we try to go for Viksit Bharat, we should also ensure that every state becomes a Viksit state. Some states should not become more Viksit than the others. So that has to be carefully looked into, and particularly about the northeastern states. northeastern states, for the last few years, particularly last decade, we have been hearing so much of investment in infrastructure, railways, this and that, lots of infrastructure, but the results of those infrastructure in terms of the growth rates of these states are not very encouraging. And at the ground level also, we have every reason to doubt the intention of the government also, because lots of money are being actually pumped into this region, and there also, because of the corruption and so many other leakages, they are again flowing out. They are again flowing out to actually outside the region. Now, corruption, particularly in this region, is again actually quite well known, and also, and not only corruption, we are also having lots of problems. So what I feel is that when we talk about Viksit Bharat, when we talk about all the states to actually pitching on the bandwagon, now care should be taken that the laggards, the backward states are also properly taken care of. We always talk about sabka saath, sabka vikas. So if some states grow faster and some states simply lag behind, now that won't make much sense. So what I believe is that this particular issue can be taken care of by having actually some body, some institution, to carefully check into these details, how these infrastructure investments are impacting the backward states, backward regions. That has to be also clearly understood. And so basically, what I have tried to actually cover in my this intervention are just 3 points. One, the first is that this concept of Viksit Bharat is still evolving, and making policies for some evolving targets is extremely difficult, and number two, of course, we can do it. We have achieved so much, and if we want to do it, we have to not only fiscal policies but monetary and all of the international this thing and all that, everything should come in. But as far as fiscal policy is concerned, we have to ensure that the finance part is properly managed, not only at the national level but also at the sub-national levels. And finally, the last point that I made is that when we talk about Viksit Bharat, we should ensure that these backward states, their issues, their problems are also properly taken care of, and they cannot actually we cannot simply wait till 2047 to find that these states have really actually failed to catch up. But we have to do it in a very about real-time analysis about their performance. Only then this Viksit Bharat will be meaningful. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So very good. I think we are highlighting again the sort of principles that come out of your talk. You are also saying that you don't know what Viksit Bharat is. You don't know how we'll be able to achieve. It's complex, dynamic, evolving. So this is what I was suggesting, that unbalanced growth. You can't do all reforms, but you look at certain parameters like inflation, macro stability, financial stability, and use that as a measuring rod, that you have done enough on the supply side and you can do more demand stimulus. So it's a dynamic path. You need to keep improving the supply side as well as sustaining demand to match it. And I think, again, when we come across this issue of the composition of expenditure, fiscal consolidation is important. The corruption, the incentives, the institutions at a third tier, the second and third tier, that will allow these expenditures to be effective. And I think that is where, as Professor Bishnoi was saying, data-based policy, you are also saying this. So what our research institutions, should carefully look at all this data. But there is this issue of fiscal council. I've been saying that we should look at fiscal councils at the state level, not to monitor government expenditure necessarily, since that leads to a lot of political resistance, but to build capacities, to build capabilities, at the third tier, and to converge to best practices. So is that, what is your opinion? Is that something that would be feasible, that would be accepted politically? But how do we, again, Professor Vaidyanathan, and the issue is how do you improve governance at the lower tiers and improve decentralization and actual devolution of funds and functionaries? So I think, please go ahead.
Ma'am, actually, regarding these finance councils, every 5 years, we have this actually the finance commissions, and when we start preparing for our report to the finance commission, now that only then we become acutely aware of the need for such institutions, because of course Delhi and other bigger states may be different, but in most of the states in northeastern India, we don't have any
state finance commissions need to be set up more regularly. No, those are not set up. So fiscal institutions at the state level, there was some talk, Charan, about the NITI kind of institution being set up at state level. So
can I come in?
Yeah. Who is?
I'm Bishnoi.
Please. Yeah,
In
please.
fact, finance commissions are set up regularly because it's constitutional these days in states. Unfortunately, their reports are not taken seriously at all. So they do not get facilities in time to submit their reports, and once reports are submitted, and I mean, nobody bothers about those reports. So unfortunately, that has been the case.
So how do you improve governance at lower levels then? What are your suggestions?
I mean, extremely difficult. I don't know, because you keep on, saying finance commissions are writing. Persons like me can also say this thing. Unfortunately, what I have seen is that even media have no sense that what these things are, why are they important. Municipality level persons, they are also highly politicized. So they are never raising these issues. So somehow I have seen this in at least few states, it has been the case. But reports are there, very well written reports, researched reports, but nobody take it seriously.
Yeah, there needs to be voter awareness on these issues, media. So, Professor Vaidyanathan, you were talking about public sector enterprises at the state level and how they function as fiefdoms. So, basic accounting rules they must follow. How is it the power sector, the kind of subsidies there are? For example, some states have done a very good job, no? So, can we copy those sort of best practices? What has worked in one state applied to another?
See, the point I want to stress is, at the state level, many of these enterprises, many of these are scams. Let me be very blunt. People don't realize, you sit in Delhi or you sit somewhere in Washington and You go to an RTO office, local level,
Mm.
you try to see Shops and Establishment Act, you try to see Food and Adulteration Act, you try to see this various land registration. I always tell my friends at Delhi, you talk so much about reforms, liberalization, this, that, and other. You get one 40 by 60 area
Mm.
in any urban places, at least in Bangalore or Chennai, and try to register it,
Mm.
right? See, when I was teaching in IAM, I used to give a project to my student. Try to set up a small dukan, small one which sells chai in Bangalore city. And that's a project. Nothing, you have to finance, but without any corruption.
Right.
Almost all the students failed the test.
Mm.
But I used to give them mark because the process was correct. You cannot do this.
And that
Very
is what
simple thing
I
I'm
was
telling.
saying, that we have a sort of
See,
coordination.
the only solution to these public enterprises
Transparency.
at state level is to close them down. Let me be very, you will save huge amount of resources actually. Nothing comes out of them. All these, reforms you're trying to change and nothing will come out of it. In a light-hearted way, first time in post-independence, on a Sunday, a budget is being presented this year. I only hope that Sunday budget gives some different orientation. Thank you very much.
So I think you gave an excellent answer. There's a question in the chat box to you about how to stop corruption. Shut
And
down all public sector.
Bishnoi was telling about ULBs. ULBs are much more scams. It's just a question of taking money.
Yeah, but you can't just
Believe it,
shut
what
down
is happening at the
governance,
lower
no? So
level.
you need panchayats to be have good accounts, to spend money well. You need government offices. You can shut down the public enterprises, but you need government offices to function, their schemes to function. So you need oversight there. And so there are a lot of questions in the chat box. I suggest the panelists just have a look if there's any point you want to raise and answer. I will just answer a question which is
Ashima ji,
like what
many of us think government is the solution. Actually, government is the problem. That's all I would say.
but
Thank you.
but
Well,
with no government,
well,
no government is also a
And another point Bishnoi made and Singh also made about regional, differences. See, each state has got their own core competence. They should focus only on that. Every state wants to do everything. Every state wants to be IT capital of the country. Every state wants to be the intellectual thing. Every state wants to be agriculture. Every activity, not required. Some states are good in something. They should focus on that much, much more. For instance, I shouldn't lightheartedly, Haryana is good in sports. They should do more
you
weightlifting.
see,
They should do more weightlifting. They should have more this
I,
what
I,
we can
I,
call
I do not agree with
wrestling and boxing.
no,
And
Professor
that's all.
Vaidyanathan.
They should try to become IT hub. What I want to say is I'm not ridiculing any state. Every state has got their own
Well,
specialities.
no, you see, there is a way to look at it. My number one, my point was not that IT should be everywhere. My point was that I have seen research papers, that Karnataka can do much better if growth comes out of Bangalore. So basically, the Bangalore has become a trap, and in fact, 20 years ago, Professor Amresh Bagchi,
Bishnoi Saab,
sir,
globally it is always like that.
no,
Certain places attract.
I-
I will tell you one thing. Tokyo,
Yeah, I think
constitute
growth is a messy
50%
process.
of the GDP.
Development is a messy
Paris,
process.
Greater Paris has all the economic growth and activities. Everywhere it is like a magnet. People come and it's something which cannot be. It's very nice to talk about equitable distribution and every regional. All regions should grow. All region cannot grow in the same way. Some regions grow
Yeah,
much
yeah, but we
faster.
have a finance commission that does redistribute among the richer and the less well-off states. So to ensure that every state gets more from being part of and the richer states have a larger market, have the advantages of being part of a larger country. So I think each state benefits in some ways from being part of the union. So this,
First of all,
bringing up
there is
north,
another
south,
issue which
etc.,
I would
is
not
sort of
mention
irresponsible.
here. We
Hmm.
should constitute another state reorganization commission and maybe have 50 to 60 states. This whole linguistic state business is a bogus thing, and it has created animosity. It has created, no, I am telling you, no language has grown due to this linguistic state. What maximum has done is one is throwing mud on the other. And the most ironical thing you will be,
No, I think my
Potti
own view is that
Sriramulu,
if as
who is a
serious
Telugu,
researchers
he
we look at
fasted unto death in order to get Andhra Pradesh. Potti Sriramulu in 1952. He is the originator of this linguistic state, and the same state, Andhra Pradesh, got split into two. The same language people.
right,
So
right.
that's a very interesting irony, actually. Those who started it are the ones, those who
That
ended it.
suffered from it. Like they say, the dog bites the hand that feeds it. Yes.
So
So
there
anyway,
will
I
be,
think
some
I
will
think
grow,
we
some
agree
will
that
not.
it's a
That's
very
okay.
messy process. India is a huge, complex, diverse economy. But I think as serious researchers, if we focus on these principles, fiscal consolidation, better composition of expenditure, improving governance and decentralization. I think some of these things are happening. For example, the center is committed to consolidation. One of the few countries, as Professor Vaidyanathan is saying, a budget on Sunday and a budget that follows a medium-term fiscal framework and so on. So we are seeing improvement. We are seeing India is doing better. So I think as academicians, we should flag these principles, try to take out incentives, the things that have worked in different places, publicize those, see if they can. I think this is a major contribution of possible, maybe NITI or other fiscal institutions, if they can, and Charan Singh was telling us as economists, our contribution, focus on principles and incentives, what works and what, therefore, politicians in their messy way, as there's more awareness, as voters become aware, will be forced to follow. So to answer the question in the chat pod, a lot of problems raised: corruption, Supreme Court judgments, demographic debt, eventually aging. But I think the answer is to look at the potential growth and actual growth, raising one and letting the other catch up in an unbalanced way, in a messy way, but underlying certain aspects, if we can hold to those, I think the country will do well.
But Professor Goyal, I should only mention, many may not agree. The balanced growth is an oxymoron. Okay. Some states will grow, some groups will grow, some groups will lag behind. There is nothing, intrinsically wrong about it or anything. We go on, we want everybody to grow at the same level. Everybody.
The
Well,
modern, the capabilities.
Madam, just a minute. You are absolutely right when you say that it's. Everybody cannot grow equally. But I suggest you to please come out of economics and go into regional developments and geography. City primacy has been a very critical problem for development, and we call it city primacy when one city is growing at the cost of its hinterland. So please appreciate this point. City should grow as you see, city is the urban human settlements hierarchy is there. So the top city is on the top. It should push pull whole region with it when it's developing. When it is developing and other regions, other places are not developing around it, 100 kilometer, 200 kilometer, then we call it city primacy. India has been suffering. Researchers have shown this thing. We need to address this issue in certain ways. I'm not saying that
you develop other smaller cities, you give them facilities.
Kerala has done wonderful. Tamil Nadu has also started developing some alternate cities. So 2-3 cities, if Bangalore, then Mangalore, then Mysuru, Karnataka would be much better off if it go by like this. Similarly, more than one town can be developed as anti-growth pole.
There are negative externalities from congestion. I think Bangalore,
Yes, and in
Bangaloreans
fact,
would
I
admit
tell
to
you,
your traffic jams. And yeah, I think I'll turn it to Charan
yes,
Singh now. Yeah, you've been
I
listening
really
very
want to
quietly.
thank you. I want to thank you for this.
Thank you.
We'll have the recording available by tomorrow. I intend to send by Monday the recording to the Ministry of Finance. I have noted down the major points which have been shared by all of you. Professor Goyal, I totally agree with you. We will have to evolve some principles on which we will have to move. Our trajectory will be based on those principles towards Viksit Bharat. I was also thinking maybe we should think in terms of institutions also. Which are
Right.
the principles and which are the institutions which will help us attain that level. So I'll plug all this and send it to the MOF. Let's see if I'm sure they'll find it very advantageous. Now, Professor Vaidyanathan, you have worked a lot on black money, on black economy, unaccounted money. I've heard you have done a book, I've heard your interviews. I have a suggestion, and I'm going to use that term very often now. I'm going to say for 25 to 30 years, we struggled with Garibi Hatao. And it is only now that we have reached a state where acute poverty is not there in India, right? I think we will need another 25, 30 years with the slogan Corruption Hatao. And maybe by the time we are Viksit, we would have attained a little less corrupt society.
Thank
Now,
you.
at IIM Bangalore, when I was your colleague, I had written a piece there. You cannot have an island of purity amidst an ocean of impurity. So I can't be honest, innocent when everybody around me is corrupt. Either they'll kill me or I'll quickly change and realize that I'm the fool who's driving in Maruti 800 where everybody else around me is driving Fortuner, right? Either you will gift me a Fortuner and bribe me, corrupt me and buy me, or I will have to. So that's why I'm saying this
If you're
effort.
Viksit, you can have a big car without.
Yeah, if I'm a Viksit
Right?
guy,
That's the idea.
if I'm a Viksit guy, even Bijoy will have a Fortuner.
Hmm.
The backward states, everybody will have a Fortuner.
Hmm.
And in Delhi also there will be a Fortuner.
But
Right?
we'll all have to move to metros because of the pollution.
Ah, that is true. Then we'll have another slogan which will say pollution hatao.
But,
then
Thank
car
you.
hatao.
I think growth, because it's unbalanced, creates lots of stresses. And we
True.
should recognize that this is part of our growing. And I
Yes.
think that corruption, I'm sorry, Professor Vaidyanathan, but sometimes when you work on something, you see that everywhere. And you don't see change. So maybe, in some aspects, I think in the center, we are seeing much less of this. And some states are doing well. And as
You know,
institutions strengthen.
Ashima ji, Subbarao was a very experienced administrator and RBI governor. He has written in his book, 20% of the civil servants are corrupt. When I met him, I told, you have made a mistake. 20% of the civil servants are not corrupt, you should have mentioned. Not, this.
So there's this wide range of estimates, researchers have. You say 20, he says 80. So what is the reality?
No, that's the estimate in black money also. Some people, the Vanchu
Anyhow.
committee and all the committees that were constituted in the last 50 years on black money, their estimates vary like across the spectrum. So I think that's been a but tell me, Vaidyanathan ji.
Charan Singh, you know that my estimate as of 1920, 1.1 trillion US dollar, our money is lying abroad in various banks, international. And domestic, Indian Institute of Public Policy has various time estimated 16 to 17% of our GDP every year is accumulated as black money.
Yeah.
Every year. Now I think it's 20%, which means 300 lakh crore, something like 60 lakh crore. Not a
No,
small
but
sum.
Professor Vaidyanathan, my
That means we are
question.
developed, we are not measuring it. That's
Hmm?
That means we are developed. What is our per capita income if we count all this?
Very less.
Right?
20%
Just
more.
not measuring it.
20% more per year.
I mean, GDP will be up by 20% if you go by Professor Vaidyanathan's
But
estimate.
they have given estimate at various points of time,
Hmm.
anywhere between 16 to 18%. You can go through their reports. Several reports they have prepared actually.
Mhm.
But then the income inequalities are very wide.
Well,
If you see, the
if
rich are
I,
super rich and the poor are super poor. That's the point. Right? So if we agree that this corruption is
There's
taking
no
place,
poverty. Poverty is only 5% in India.
no, that is acute poverty.
Multi-dimensional.
That's acute poverty.
in fact, corruption is all pervasive. I did a research. I found that one new method our persons have found is that they are exporting IT through IT. I mean, export of IT does not involve any tangible things, and getting money out of, I mean, IT in the name of IT exports. So we did a related party activity things, and it was published in a very prestigious journal of corporate research. So I mean, in related party, we found that corruption in IT is as pervasive as it is in this real estate. So,
But Professor
although
Bishnoi, why it should not be? That's the point I'm saying. You can't be an island of honesty amidst an ocean of corruption. If one
No,
is
but
corrupt,
why does India, I mean, I'm sure there are estimates in other countries. If we think corruption is much higher in India, it's because of the systems. We need to improve our systems, institutions, remove tax loopholes, increase data availability, transparency, oversight, accounts, and audit of accounts, forensic audits, all that, even at the panchayat level. So we have to do all this.
in fact, I feel that rather than talking about corruption, we should talk about the efficiency of government services. If
Yes.
services are efficient,
Mm.
nobody ain't paying something, I mean, to the government services. It can be a premium or something, I don't know what to call it. But if services are efficient, I tell you, you may be surprised. Professor Vaidyanathan is saying something about Haryana. I tell you, I am from UP. When I came to Haryana, I was really surprised to see that within 15 days, my driving license was, I mean, done, and without charging any extra money from me. So it was a shocking thing 25 years ago to me, that not 25, almost 30 years ago. So a lot of things are happening. Functional economies are there. Only thing is that uh, systematic changes and changes are systematic change. Technology has done a lot of things for, I mean, removing corruption, but behavioral issues we have not been able to, I mean,
That
address.
I totally agree with you. Technology has helped quite a lot. See, for instance, railway reservation. If you have traveled before 92, that black coat man called TTE, he used to visit you, and then you have to have the market forces operating. You know, one general manager of railway told me the cabinet minister at Delhi used to instruct who should be a TTE in which location. No, this is a factual thing
Yes.
actually. Today, you see, they are not relevant. You just show in your mobile phone itself the details and then get into the. So, the technology, I agree with you. Quite a lot of areas technology has facilitated. For instance, one can pay the house tax in many cities today
Yes.
through the
Yes.
internet.
Yeah, wherever
You don't have to
discretion
visit
of
the
low-level
office and then
official rules.
grease the palm, nothing like that.
Yes, you don't interface with them. The same
So
thing we
the
talk about
technology
tax
has
reform.
facilitated, but at the same time, the various other dimensions of corruptions are also coming out. That is the thing. Anyhow, we
Yeah.
will. Anyhow, I hope I have not hurt anybody.
Not, but
And I should
So
thank
we have
challenging
to, the
profusely.
more you air these things, they say that's what is powerful about a democracy or a media that works. that everything comes out. You can't hide anything. And I think that's the best cure, sunlight and air to kill corruption. So I hope we've brought some sunlight, some searchlights on this issue. Okay, very nice talking to all
Thank
of
you very much. Thank you for giving the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
So the recording will be available tomorrow by noon and I'll share the link with each one of you. You are welcome to share it further. I also want to share two thoughts. One is on January 14, just after Lori, we will have a discussion on Manrega. And that's also going to be a very interesting discussion. Professor Deshpande from ISEC will be chairing that session. And we have professors from different places coming and talking and sharing with us their experience of Manrega. I also have some suggestions, and we are taking up that discussion in a very constructive, making suggestions for improvement. By the way, the feedback is there's quite a bit of corruption even in Manrega. So, and it can be plugged. So, Professor Vaidyanathan, your point of taxing agriculture income, given that now we have the AI tools, earlier which we didn't have, and our argument earlier that there are 17 or 20 crore households dependent only on agriculture, how much of army of income tax officers do we need to go and assess? Now that can be taken care by AI tools. Similarly, Manrega can be straightened up if we use the AI tools. On 16th, next Friday, we have a dedicated webinar on AI tools. So the next 2 days, I would welcome you. On January 1, the budget is being presented. And I'm not surprised if as a think tank we can, and you as my colleagues can work on a Saturday evening just before the Lodi. I'm so happy the government is keeping up the pace and presenting the budget on Sunday. By the way, I many times have felt for shopkeepers, traders, headload workers, informal sector, there is no Sunday or Monday. Every day they have to work. So if we have to work on a Sunday, in that sense, we have added an extra day in the year that makes it a leap year. So something which we all need to celebrate. So I look forward to you joining us on 14th and 16th, and on the day of the budget at EGROW, before you go to Arnab Goswami, we will have a discussion on the union budget economist's view. So I'd like you to please pencil that also in your diaries. On February 1 evening, we are going to have a discussion on the union budget. With that, let me thank each one of you, the speakers, the chair of the session and our colleague at EGROW, our advisor, and the participants who have actively participated to enrich this discussion. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
So much. I think fiscal issues, government taxation creates a lot of interest. Very, very nice. Lot of questions. We couldn't do justice to them.
Yeah.
Lot of discussion. But it's good to see that interest, and that is the way a democracy works. Keep questioning the government.
Thank you very much, Charan ji. Thank you.
And thank you, Charan, for putting this platform where everybody can come and be heard. Okay, thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Ashima. Thank you, Bishnoi. Thank you, Bijoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.